college football championship weekend is in the books, and we'll recap the games and what they meant for the college football N1 games, also known as the college football playoffs. We'll also update all the coaching moves and give you some early analysis and even some picks on games that begin in 7 days. But before we get into all that, it's Army-Navy Day tomorrow, Mitch, and it's going to rain.
Is it? Okay, cool. There's been some inclement weather there, snow a couple of years ago. I don't know if it was last year or 2 years ago, but I love the Army-Navy game. Always liked it, and just, I don't know, a greater appreciation in recent years, the fact that Army's now good.
Yes.
Although Navy's better this year, but, for years it was such a mismatch. Even though the games were close, you just knew Navy was going to win. So it's fun that there's more balance in the rivalry now.
Okay, now here's some interesting trends because Navy's a 10.5-point favorite. Army is about plus 345 on the money line. The dog has covered 5 straight in the series. The under has covered 7 straight in the series, and it's 40.5. Army is 0-13-1 straight up the last 14 games versus Navy when they have a losing record and Navy has a winning record. And finally, Monken is 12-2 against the spread versus 750 or better teams. So basically what I'm getting here is take Army to cover and the under. It's not a bad idea.
Yeah, it's funny how the dynamics and the psychology of this has changed, though. Like, I think so many of those Army teams' seasons were poor, and this was their Super Bowl. It's obviously still an important game for both teams, no matter what their respective records are. But it feels like for years that was really the only thing that could save Army's season, and they played really well. Whereas now, again, they had 2 really good seasons. This year was disappointing, so it'll be a big game for them. It's just and Navy's bounced back from last year's debacle. So I'm just interested to see how both teams play, because of the, like I said, the changing dynamics of the rivalry, where for a couple of years Army was the better program, and now Navy has restored order. I'm sure they would say.
Yeah, I think if this was just a couple of regular teams based on how the season had gone, I'd be going with Navy. But I do think because of the rivalry and the fact that Army has even covered games in this series before they started winning games. When they were really bad, they would cover some games. So I'm willing to go ahead and say, okay, that's why I said, okay. But I do like Navy to win. Navy's clearly been the better team this year. Army's missing a little bit of something besides the schedule that got a lot tougher this season. But, yeah, this is the bowl game for sure for Army. There is no more game after this. For Navy, they still have a bowl game after this. But this is the game of all games between these two teams anyway, no matter what. And that's the way I'll go. I'll take Navy to win, but I'll go ahead and take the points.
I think I would agree. I would agree with that.
All right, let's now. By the way, kudos to J.P. Scott at Athlon, because I noticed he had his idea for a 16-team playoff, which I had really been a proponent of years ago, and I'm glad he's mentioned it, because it gives me a reason to back him. I like the idea of going to a 16-team playoff when you give every conference champion an automatic bid. And then that would leave what? There's 10, so that leaves 6 at large. Yeah. And you go from there. So now you've got 6. And obviously, if a team's already won a conference, like let's say Clemson's won their conference championship, then you get a second team possibly from the ACC if they would qualify as an at-large. So I like that because it gives you the Cinderella option. Appalachian, I think where he had it, Appalachian State would play Clemson. Which, hey, you know what? The way Virginia played last time out, they're not going to beat them, but it's kind of cool to see that. That's what we get in college basketball, is that you never know. I mean, Virginia lost to a 16 seed a couple years ago, so you just, as a fan, you just want to see that, even though you know that in that first round you're going to get more than likely blowouts, but you just never know. You're going to get that upset once every couple of years, and that's what makes college football, basically sports in general, fun, and I like that idea.
We're going to agree to disagree. I would not be an advocate of 16 teams. I could get to 8 kicking and screaming. I kind of like where it is right now.
Well, yeah. Well, they're never going to get to 16 before they go to
Right.
8.
Right.
So if they took this long to get to 4,
right.
We have we've got another what?
Football might not be around by that time.
Probably. Okay, LSU. Let's get into these championship games. LSU beats Georgia, and we both liked LSU a lot last week, and they basically won the way that I think we both thought they'd win.
Yeah, completely dominant, and I think their dominance helped them get to number 1 because we talked about all year what was their issue. Defense, giving up too many yards, too many points. Last 2 games, they completely shut down Texas A&M and Georgia. Georgia has its offensive deficiencies, but it was still a team that was 11-1, and LSU just looked like, a completely dominant team, and it could have been worse in the first half there. LSU right now is a team with very few, if any, weaknesses, and for them to beat Alabama and beat Georgia, basically a road game at Georgia, with the crowd in Atlanta, can't say enough good things about what LSU's done this year.
And look, I've had a lot of negative things to say about these committees, but they do deserve props for changing it back to LSU. That's where it should have been. Now, if Ohio State would have blew out Wisconsin, I think Ohio State stays number 1.
It would have been hard to move Ohio State down, but if they did, but obviously Ohio State struggled in the first half. Give Wisconsin credit; they were great in the first half.
And that's the thing that again, we talked about this a few weeks ago before Ohio State went in this end of the season schedule. We just didn't know how good Ohio State was. And here's the problem I still have with Ohio State is when they have played against some of their tougher competition, they haven't looked like this dominant, you can't beat team. And if they struggle against Wisconsin, then of course they're going to struggle even more against the better teams. The only difference though is that in this 4-team playoff, we don't have a dominant defense. So
Clemson's pretty good. I mean, I know they gave up some yards to Virginia, and I wanted to look this up. I never did. I bet Virginia's the only team that crossed midfield on its first 3 possessions this year against Clemson. So, but I'm with you, Ohio State. They've won. They've taken care of business, and they were dominant in the second half, and they surged ahead. They had some protection issues in the first half, and Fields, didn't look like he was 100% there. But I think there's a reason Clemson's favored, even though Clemson's the 3 seed.
Yeah, that's a good point because they are the best defense out of the 4, and I think we did we both have for the last few weeks LSU Clemson in the final?
I'm not sure. I probably had Ohio State, but I've changed my mind. I've got LSU Clemson right now.
Yeah, all right. So, and LSU to win it all?
Yeah, I mean, right now,
yeah.
I'd like to see how they play.
Yeah, let's see how Clemson plays Ohio State because if they all of a sudden look like last year's Clemson, then wait a second, and that's possible. All right, but back to the SEC, the coaching moves. Chad Morris out at Arkansas. He's now hired as the offensive coordinator at Auburn. Sam Pittman gets the job. So this is probably the biggest surprise out of the Power 5 teams was Pittman getting the job at Arkansas. What do you think? What do you think about it? Surprised?
Don't love it. Yeah, surprised. Especially it was a late pivot. It looked like they talked to Lane Kiffin before Ole Miss did, and it looks like Kiffin chose Ole Miss. So to pivot from a guy like Kiffin, who's been a head coach and is kind of a known offensive commodity, obviously has some baggage there, to go to a position coach. My concerns about Pittman are, why has he gotten to this stage of his career and never even been promoted to coordinator? We've never heard his name tossed out as a potential head coach. He's very highly regarded. He's a very good recruiter. He knows the SEC. He's been at Tennessee. He was Arkansas previously. To me, it's all about what kind of staff does he hire and what kind of offense do they run. The part of their problem was they went from the Bielema offense to a Chad Morris offense, and everyone said the transition was going to take a while, and it did. So they've recruited to more Chad Morris style. So what happens if they hire this offensive line coach and he wants to go more like what he did in Georgia, and then they all that the talent they recruited that's better fit for the spread, up tempo stuff, and then they change again. So I think it's going to be really interesting and important to see what kind of hires he makes as an offensive defensive coordinator.
Yeah, you better give him time because of that reason. Maybe this is one of those stability jobs. Let's get a guy that maybe can stabilize this program, and then if we feel he's not the guy to get us over the top, at least maybe we're going back to bowls, we're respectable again, and then we can hire somebody better. Barry Odom out at Missouri. Eli Drinkwitz, one and done at App State. Willie Fritz, this was his dream job, so he gets looked over once again. And I could have even seen Willie Fritz at Arkansas, to tell you the truth. But anyway, Drinkwitz gets the job after a successful one-year stint with App State.
Yeah, good hire. I like Willie Fritz. We talk about him a lot here. But Drinkwitz has been very good. His NC State offenses were very good. NC State struggled this year without him, but a lot of that was, losing Ryan Finley at quarterback and had a ton of injuries. He's been part of successful programs, Boise State. So I think it's a good fit, good hire. Guy goes from making $750 as a head coach at App State to $4 million as a head coach at Missouri. Pretty good week for Eli Drinkwitz and family.
Yeah, if you're an App State fan, you can't have anything. You can't say anything else.
Right.
But hey, good luck.
Thanks for the year.
Yeah, exactly. Barry Odom, by the way, we haven't heard anything yet where he's going, but he's
maybe Memphis.
Okay, but he definitely has. Well, look, I mean, what do you mean? Is the head coach?
Yeah, I mean he was the defensive coordinator at Memphis for 2 years, and he is definitely in the mix there.
Okay. I don't know if I trust him for a head coaching job at this point, but he'd be a very good defense coordinator somewhere. Matt Lucas, the offensive line coach now at Georgia, gone from Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin got the job, so that's a home run hire for Ole Miss based on who else they were talking to and some of the other guys that were out there, especially when you're talking about Sam Pittman going to Arkansas. So I think Kiffin deserved another chance. This is it, though. Kiffin better get this done.
Oh, yeah. If he screws this up and does some stupid things, he's done as a head coach probably, definitely at the Power 5 level. But I think he's matured just enough. I think he'll do some things he's still Lane Kiffin. He'll do some fun things and to tweak opposing fan bases. But I think he's matured enough that he'll hold on to the job. He's a really good offensive coach, and he'll recruit there. So it makes Ole Miss relevant nationally.
You believe it all in Dan Mullen as an NFL type of coach, or is he a college football lifer?
I think Dan Mullen has a huge ego and thinks he, one of those guys thinks he invented football. So I think, especially with the way that offenses are going in the NFL, I could definitely see him at that level. I think, 5 years ago, I would have said, just because the type of offenses he runs, that he's a college guy. I hope he stays in the college game. I think, he's a great fit at Florida, but I could definitely see him giving the NFL a shot.
Well, he won't with that ego. He's not going to Dallas, that's for sure. Same thing with Urban Meyer. I can't see guys like that going. See, I could see Riley going because if a guy like Lincoln Riley wants to take a job in the NFL at this stage, he's so young. I think he wants to go somewhere where he feels he's not going to be rushed and he can be there for a while, and it's going to be where he, it's some stability. And considering how long Jason Garrett was able to get there, Lincoln Riley could coach there for 20 years, and he's never going to get fired, especially if he's successful. So I just, again, whether he leaves after this year or not, Lincoln Riley and the Cowboys, I believe in that more than I do Urban Meyer.
Yeah, Lincoln Riley continues to insist he's happy where he is, and he's got a great job and tells people that he knows that. So, but you never know what to believe in the coaching circles.
Big Ten. Okay, so Ohio State gets to win over Wisconsin. They struggled there, but they're in the playoffs. That's really all that matters. As far as coaching moves, we mentioned Schiano back at Rutgers. James Franklin, we didn't get a chance to discuss it last week, but I did want to ask you, and I think I know the answer, which was he using the rumors of him going to Florida State? I just didn't buy into that. I thought that I didn't even understand it. And then he gets the extension, and then light bulb. I mean, come on. I mean, why would James Franklin want to leave Penn State?
I would think James Franklin would be interested in USC if and when it ever comes open, not Florida State. With you, I did not think that was a move that he'd be interested in. He has all he's looking for at Penn State, but I think USC is a job that would be very attractive to him.
And why would, being a Pennsylvania guy, why would he go USC? Does it because it's easier with recruiting? He doesn't have to worry about Ohio State and Michigan every year. What is it? Why do you think USC?
I just think that type of job excites a James Franklin in the big city with the history of that program. His wife's from the West Coast. Always got to keep the wife in mind when they're making decisions like that. So, I mean, I think he genuinely loves Penn State, and there's only a couple jobs that even would ever interest him. And I think USC would be one of
You
those.
think Ryan Day gets an NFL offer? Because he's not leaving Ohio State unless he does.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, again, with the way some of these quarterbacks, watch Lamar Jackson last night with some of the offenses and what we're seeing, I think that's opening up a whole new, avenue for these college coaches.
Yeah, if I'm the Cleveland Browns, I'm going to both Urban Meyer and Ryan Day.
Sure.
That would be a home run right there. Okay, ACC. So Clemson blows out Virginia after an interesting quarter or so, but they get the job done as we expected. Willie Taggart out at FSU. Mike Norvell in. We talked a little bit about that already. Adazio was out at Boston College. And first, let's talk about the Boston, because they haven't hired anybody yet, but we did touch up on it last week about the possibility with the ties with the AD and his Ohio State connection that maybe some Ohio State assistants could be and maybe are in the running. Luke Fickell has been a name that's pretty prominent there, but as we've talked about, it's kind of hard for Luke Fickell to leave Cincinnati just yet.
Yeah, I think Fickell probably looks at it's not a Power 5 job, but it's pretty close. And I don't think, to me, leaving Cincinnati for Boston College, I don't think it's enough of a step up.
I agree.
Building a nice program there, so I think he would wait for a Big Ten job.
Ohio State.
Yeah, and Jeff Hafley, obviously one of the Ohio State assistants, is mentioned prominently. So we'll see. But I'd be surprised if Luke Fickell. There's talk that Missouri was interested in him, that he wasn't really interested in Missouri. So I think he's got his sights set pretty high.
All right, Oklahoma Baylor. What a crazy game that was. Brewer goes out, and watching the backup play, and even though he was completing a couple of big passes, you just knew. I mean, I was so happy that he went to the third string, because that's what was in my mind was, come on, you got to tell me that the third string is better than this, because this guy just is. Come on, this is going to be a blowout. And then he goes to the third string, and the third string was clearly better than the backup. They came so close to stealing that one.
Yeah, they did. Jacob Zeno was threw some nice balls there, and no doubt. I give Oklahoma credit defensively in the overtime. They made the decision. We're getting after this guy, and he's a freshman. We're going to make him try and figure out where we're coming from, and they got pressure on him, and I think it was 4 straight plays and ended that one. But yeah, what a fun game, and all the credit to Baylor. Phenomenal season to come. Literally, a play away from making the college football playoffs is pretty amazing.
All right, I'm going to keep saying it. Matt Rule to the Giants. That's my prediction. Let's go to Pac-12. And we mentioned it last week that the Pac-12 was going to be nervous because not only do they have a couple of teams that were bowl eligible that lost their opportunity to get into a bowl, so that's 2 less teams in. Then they had the Oregon upset to Arizona State. And then Chris Peterson shocks everybody and decides to leave. So all they had left was Utah. If they can get Utah to win this game, they can get to the playoffs, it could salvage the season. And what happens? Oregon spanks them early and holds on late. And the Pac-12 has to look back at the season as a complete disaster.
Yeah, Utah's my team. I got that one completely wrong. Thought they were going to beat Oregon. They had that first drive going, and they stalled on 4th down, and then it was pretty much over. I know they threatened a little bit in the 3rd quarter or early 4th quarter, but Oregon was the better team. They were faster, stopped them on some key 4th downs, and, now Oregon's got to look back and kick itself for its performance against Arizona State, or if it makes one more play against Auburn, they're in the playoffs. So,
well, that's why if you get an 8 team, a team like Oregon could get in.
But they weren't good enough.
No, yeah, sure, I agree.
They lost the road to a 7-6,
absolutely
7 Arizona State, 7-5 Arizona State team.
Yep,
so,
the way the system is, that's right. You got it. You can't do it. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, coaching moves. How surprised were you that both Clay Helton and Kevin Sumlin were retained?
Well, I was surprised about Helton. I think there's a lot of off-the-field stuff, a lot of money issues going on there. They didn't retain him, I don't think, because they think he's the answer long-term for football. I don't think they wanted to make the financial, decision to not only fire him, but if you fire Clay Helton, you've got to hire someone, whether it's a James Franklin or an Urban Meyer. You're paying $7 million, so that's a huge commitment, and I don't think they were ready to make that. Kevin Sumlin, it hasn't been good, no doubt about it, but it's only 2 years.
Yeah,
they haven't.
I agree.
It's been a complete disaster. They've won some games. It's not like it's an Arkansas situation. So I can get why he's back. I think obviously next year he'll need to win some games. They made staff changes on defense. They need to be better there, so that he needs to get it going next year.
And Mike Leach gets the extension, so I still think it's just a matter of time. Maybe Mike just doesn't feel like the right job has come up, but I don't know. And who knows who's going to be his quarterback next year? He seems to find these guys, just like Lincoln Riley. Now, Gage Gabrud, is he done?
Yeah, he was a grad transfer, fifth-year senior.
Okay, so
he did not. Sometimes grad transfers have 2 years of eligibility, but I don't think he graduated from Eastern Washington in 3 years. I think he played he was there for 4 years.
All right, so they have to find and you know what transfer market's out there.
They'll find somebody.
Yeah, they'll find someone. All right, let's go to Independent. Liberty gives Hugh Freeze the extension, even though it's 5 years. He probably only be there a year or two. As long as things go well, he'll get a better job.
We'll see.
This is about his reputation. And Doug Martin. Yeah. Now, there's some recent news there, off the field stuff, right? That maybe Doug Martin may not be able to hold on to his job now at New Mexico State.
I didn't see that. All I saw was the note about a couple days ago, or a week ago, that he was coming back.
Yeah, so there's news the last couple of days that come out. There are some allegations. Who knows that he's too tough on the players, that kind of nonsense. But because sometimes it is nonsense. But we'll find out more about that, I'm sure, by next week's show. AAC, Memphis beat Cincinnati for a second straight week, and as we thought, it was going to be a very tough game, and it was, but they finally get over the hump.
Yeah, and, their kicker, his name escapes me right now, I think, had 2 50-yard field goals. That was a fun game to watch. Even I turned off the SEC championship game in the second half to watch the AAC. So Memphis, 2 weeks in a row, tough games against Cincinnati, and that's why home field's so important. That's it, in those leagues like the Mountain West and Sun Belt and the Conference USA and AAC, where the home team, the team with the better record or the better higher ranked team hosts it, and Memphis wins that game at home. If it's at Cincinnati, Cincinnati probably wins it.
And offensive line coach Ryan Silverfield is going to coach the bowl game with Norville out at Florida State, and Silverfield has a chance to be the head coach. So it might be one of those situations where they just want to see how he does. We haven't heard anything yet, but you mentioned Odom. So we'll see if Silverfield can impress them and hold on to the job. Also, Charlie Strong out, Jeff Scott in. We knew that they got 3 top assistants at Clemson. One is finally gone, one of the co-offensive coordinators, Scott. So apparently he found a spot that he feels is perfect for him, and that's a great hire for South Florida.
Yeah, he's got a great reputation, obviously, and one of those guys always mentioned for jobs there. You never know what kind of level, but that's AAC is that's a good league, and USF's a school with a lot of potential. Obviously, they're seeing what they're I was going to call them their friends, but they're not friends down the street in Orlando are doing. So there's a lot of upside to that job. So yeah, I think good hire by USF.
And Philip Montgomery stays at Tulsa, and I'm glad he stayed. I thought Tulsa had a very good year. They lost a lot of close football games, and a lot of times, and as long as you got enough guys coming back next year, it's one of those situations where next year you probably start winning those games. So I think he deserved one more year at least.
Yeah, I was glad to see him get retained. They had some painful losses, and the AD there, Derek Gregg, is actually a former player at Vanderbilt. And when I was the sports editor of the Vanderbilt school paper, I saw Derek Gregg catch 3 touchdown passes against Alabama and a 59-28 Alabama win. But that's my Tulsa news item for you there. But yeah, that's a case where an AD, who maybe played football and understood that his coaches. They were improved. They had a ton of injuries last year, and then this year they just had a lot of close losses. So obviously he needs to do well next year, but I think he's a pretty good coach.
Okay, Mountain West, Boise, another win. So that's 2 out of 3 over the last 3 years on the blue turf in the championship game. This one over Hawaii. As far as the coaching moves, now we mentioned Adazio out in BC. I said Pittman was the big surprise in the group of 5. The Power 5 surprise in my mind is Adazio. I am very upset if I'm a Colorado State fan. I do not like this hire if I'm a Colorado State. I don't get it. I'm sorry. I mean, there were other guys like Tony Alford, who's an alum, an Ohio State assistant. There's so many other ways they could have gone. I don't get this one.
Well, I would counter that by saying, and I would not have hired Steve Adazio, but I would counter that by saying he would remain relatively competitive at an ACC, at one of the maybe the most difficult ACC school to win at. So now he's going into a league in which he has one of the better programs in the league, and he has more advantages compared to other people. He did well at Temple, so I think at that level, I think he has done well. Now there's some of his former players didn't like him at BC, and they were glad he got fired. That stuff would concern me more. But I think he did a good enough job at a difficult job that you can expect that he'll have Colorado State, at least very competitive in that league.
Yeah, and I get what you're saying. I think if it would have been a different situation, because I think he is in a great situation. This is a great job. This is a great place to live. This is one of the better jobs in the conference, and I don't know. I just don't know if he deserved it, but let's see him take advantage of it now, and maybe we'll all be wrong and they'll be right.
Yep.
Also, Bob Davie, we still don't know who's going to replace him in New Mexico. Tony Sanchez has been replaced by Marcus Arroyo, so that's a really good hire because Dave Aranda wanted the job, the LSU defensive coordinator, but Marcus Arroyo gets it, and this is another good job now with the Raiders coming into town, with the new stadium. The place is starting to boom professionally, so for a college coach, this is a good opportunity for Arroyo.
Yeah, I mean, for years, we've been hearing about the potential of this job, and no one has been able to get it done there. Now they have the advantage of the new stadium and all that. So it's the right time to be the UNLV coach. They're investing in the program. So, be interesting to see what he does and if he can elevate them in that league.
Top candidates for the other two openings. DeBoer still seems like a logical at Fresno, but we haven't heard anything yet. The Indiana offensive coordinator. And Danny Gonzalez does seem like a good candidate at New Mexico. He's a former player there. But he's a graduate there. But I don't know. We haven't heard anything about the New Mexico job either. So
right, yeah, that's Gonzalez the only name I've heard.
And Jordan Love has declared for the NFL draft. I have not heard yet whether or not he's going to play in the game though. So he's gone.
Floated out there that he might resurface as a grad transfer. So I wouldn't rule that out either.
All right, Conference USA, FAU all over UAB. Willie Taggart replaces Kiffin at FAU, so good hire for FAU and a good spot for Taggart, too, to get his name back in good grace around college football.
Yeah, he's a guy who's had success in that state at USF and should be able to recruit. Now he's just got to kind of run the program with a little more organization than he did at Florida State.
Bobby Wilder out, Ricky Rain in. What about Ricky Rain? What do you know about him? Penn State offensive coordinator.
Ricky Ronnie.
Ronnie, okay. Now I see. This is what we have to learn about Ricky Ronnie.
Former quarterbacks coach at Vanderbilt under James Franklin, so I got to know him when he was here in Nashville. Followed Franklin as his quarterbacks coach, and then took over as offensive coordinator after Joe Moorhead left. Very young guy, personable guy. I think he'll recruit very well there. I thought it was a good hire.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And Frank Wilson out at UTSA. Jeff Traylor is in. He was a 15-year successful high school coach at Texas, most recently the associate head coach and running backs coach at Arkansas. And once again, Bill Clark doesn't get a job, UAB.
Yep, exactly. What's Bill Clark have to do to get a job? Just keep winning Conference USA West titles, I guess.